Hi, my bio kids. How are you doing? Hope you're staying safe and being healthy. And best thing right now, we can do schoolwork in our pajamas. You can wear blankets. No one's going to yell at you. You can wear hats or hoodies. Look, I'm going to wear a hoodie the whole time. Just kidding. I really miss you guys, and I hope to see you soon, or at least by the end of the year. This is a whole new learning experience for all of us, so bear with us in terms of the computer activities. FIDS days, I'm going to grade them. I'll give you participation points, but a lot of people didn't understand what to do. Whenever you take a quiz, just do a screenshot and send it to me via Google Classroom. Today, I'm just going to give notes via Zoom. We could do Zoom also if you guys want. I could set aside office hours for biology, and you guys can call with any questions or just to say hi to everybody. We could set up a class time. You know, it's going to be a lot of people though, so I'll set aside office hours for each one of the classes. So otherwise, you know, I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to start on a new topic. It's genetics. So I'm going to go through a PowerPoint. You guys can take notes on it. If you have a good memory, you can do that. I have follow along notes if you want to use those and print them off. But basically the main concept is you learning to learn on your own. So anyway, I am going to show you a PowerPoint, and you know, if you guys have any questions on it, email me or just put it on, you know, the assignment site. But here we go. I'm going to share this screen with you, and we're going to talk about genetics. So genetics is our next topic. It might be a little bit easier to teach online anyway, rather than DNA and RNA, because that stuff gets pretty tricky. But genetics is the study of inheritance, and just kind of a review. What is a specific region of DNA that codes for a specific protein? What do you call that little section of DNA that codes for like eye color or hair color or tallness, shortness? That is called a gene. So hopefully you said a gene. The different forms of a gene are called an allele. So you can have an allele for brown eyes, an allele for blue eyes. You can have like you know, if it's a plant, there's alleles for tallness, shortness, yellow, green, pea pods. So in most cases, traits are polygenic, which means they're controlled by many genes. It's rare that a single gene will determine a single trait. That's why it's amazing that Gregor Mendel, the monk, and this is this guy right here where I'm putting my cursor, he discovered the basics of rules of inheritance by studying single gene traits in pea plants. So he actually lucked out. He was a gardener, lived in Austria. As a monks are those people who live in communes, very religious, but he was a gardener, and he was also a mathematician, and he studied traits in peas. So he started crossing them and doing experiments, and he was lucky because during this time, you know, he picked a plant that only had single gene traits. So he lucked out. So two key words, genotype and phenotype. These are two vocab words. A genotype is the combination of alleles of a particular gene. It's like your gene makeup. And a phenotype is the appearance of that trait, what it physically looks like. So genotype, if you look at the cursor, these two green things, those would be genes, and they would code for a phenotype. So say these green things coded for eye color. The genotype would be like big G, which would be green eyes, and phenotype would be green eye color. So we'll practice with that. He also lucked out because single gene traits are either dominant or recessive. Most of the time. Dominant alleles will show if they're, or be expressed if they're present in the genotype. So anytime you have a capital letter, like for example, a spotted big S, that means it's dominant. So it would have spots like this guy. So if in its genes, you get one from your mom, one from your dad, say from your mom, you got a big S, which means you're spotted. And the recessive would be lowercase s, not spotted. Recessive alleles, they only show if you inherit both copies from your parents. So little s, little s. This one is little s, little s. This one could be big S, big S. We had both dominant from its parents, or it could be big S, little s, which means it's spotted, but it carries that recessive allele. And I put that on there because I thought that was funny. They're beating each other up. Okay, so homozygous versus heterozygous are two other vocab words. Homozygous means you have the same allele. So you could be homozygous dominant for a trait. You'd have, say you were talking about detached earlobes where you have that little boingy thing on the end. That would be homozygous dominant if you had big E, big E. Or you could have a recessive homozygous, little e, little e, which stands for your attached earlobe. So you don't really, you don't have that little extra flap. So homozygous dominant, big E, homozygous recessive, little e, the same letters. Homo means same in Latin. Heterozygous is you have two different alleles. So you're a hybrid, big E, little e. So your genotype, if you're heterozygous, you have one dominant allele from one of the parents and one recessive allele from the other. But your phenotype, you show the dominant allele. So you have detached earlobes. So the phenotype is the physical look. The genotype is your genetic makeup. Heterozygotes, ha ha ha. All right, I'm done being dorky. All right, scientists use a Punett square to determine possible outcomes of alleles and combinations. And I know that you've used these before, like I know you did SpongeBob genetics in 7th grade. But anyway, say you had a parent that had blue eyes. And in this case, when you're doing Punett squares, one parent's alleles go on top. So this guy, he has blue eyes. I forget his name, Ian something. He was from Vampire Diaries. You have little b, which means it's recessive, and he carries both recessive traits, and he has blue eyes. And this girl, Zendaya, she's heterozygous, so she carries one dominant allele and one recessive allele. So then you'd set up your box, and basically these transfer. So the big B goes there. You just kind of where they intercept in the box. Big B, big B. So what percent chance would the phenotype or physical look be brown eyes? If you said 50%, you'd be right. What is the chance that the phenotype will have blue eyes? If you said 50-50%, that's also correct. And then the genotype, if I said, what is the chance you would be heterozygote brown eyes? You would say 50-50 because your kids, these are the possibilities of your kids. It's not telling what order or what direction. These are just the possible offspring. So these two, if they had a baby, they'd have a 50-50 chance of their kid having brown eyes or blue eyes. So heterozygote would be 50-50. What would be the chance if I said, what would the chance be if you'd had, these two would make a homozygous dominant child? Do you see any homozygous dominance in this? If you answered no, you'd be correct. Homozygous dominant would be big B, big B. So there's no way that these two could have a genotype child that would have big B, big B. And then if I said, what is the chance the genotype would be heterozygous recessive? These are these guys, little b, homozygous, same, recessive, little lowercase. So that would be the predictions. We're going to talk a little bit about genetic diseases caused by mutation of the single gene. Cystic fibrosis is one of those genetic diseases. It's caused by a recessive allele, which means a gene that codes for proteins, which is involved with the transport of chloride ions across the cell membrane. It's mutated. And this mutation of the faulty protein causes a lot of problems. Cystic fibrosis people, they'd have a lot of issues breathing, they'd have mucus build up in their chest, they would have difficult, like they'd always have to take medicine, they'd have stomach problems because the mucus would, like swallowing a lot of mucus, it would go into their stomach. So just one little mutation can cause a lot of problems. And say both parents were, here's parent one, parent two, say they were heterozygous, so they did not have cystic fibrosis because they have that dominant allele, but they carry the gene. What would the percentage be if their child would have cystic fibrosis? This one would be homozygous dominant, they would have the normal protein. These two right here are heterozygous normal, they would have the normal protein, they would not have cystic fibrosis. This child right here would have cystic fibrosis, they are homozygous recessive. So if you said 25% chance of a kid having cystic fibrosis, or 1 in 4, you'd be correct. Genetics also uses pedigree charts, and they can trace inheritance of traits through multiple generations. Carriers must be represented by half circles. So these guys right here, where they're half and half, they're all carriers of whatever trait they're looking at. This one, they say autosomal recessive inheritance, which means that an autosome is a body chromosome. So carriers have half circles. Shaded means they have the trait. And males are squares, females are circles. This line in between represents like a marriage or a coupling. So this male, this female, this male's a carrier. They had 3 kids. 2 out of their 3 kids were boys, and both boys were carriers. The female was not a carrier. She ended up with both good traits. And then these 2, you have a male who was not a carrier and a female who's a carrier. They marry, they have 1, 2, 3, 4 kids, 2 girls, 2 boys. The girl and the boy are a carrier, the other boy and girl are not. These have, if they had kids, one of their offspring would be homozygous dominant. The other 2 would not have whatever trait this is, but carry it, and then one of these would have the trait, which is cystic fibrosis, now that I'm looking at it. So anyway, that's how you read those. Predictions from Punett squares are actually accurate for large numbers of offspring. So if you know families, like I know my one friend, she has 5 kids and they are all boys. But each pregnancy, you have a 50-50 chance of having a child. But each pregnancy, that starts over, and again, you're at your 50-50. So because you have 5 boys, doesn't mean the next time you get pregnant, you're gonna have a girl. It just doesn't work that way. So females, remember, they are XX. Males are XY. To do the Punett square, you just, where these intersect, you put those down, where this one and this one. So where these intersect, these are boys. So that's why you get a 50-50. The guy parent is on the side, the mom is on top, her genotypes and his genotypes. So guys, they are really in control of what sex that, I mean, they're really not, but I mean, they're what causes the sex of the child. So if they give their X, they have a girl. If they give their Y, they have a boy. There's other types of inheritance. There's incomplete dominance, codominance, and multiple alleles. Incomplete dominance is heterozygous in between, or a blend of 2 traits. So these ones are a little different. When we start working out Punett squares on these, you're going to use all capital letters. So if it says dominant recessive, use capital lowercase. If it says incomplete, you're going to use both capitals. And if it says codominance, you also use capitals. So say you had a red flower and a white flower. if there was a mix, if you had a big R and a W and they mixed, their offspring would be a blend of the two. They'd be pink. So it's not completely dominant over the other. They just blend in. Codominants show both dominant traits. So here you have a white bull and a red cow. And say if they had offspring, if the white bull gave his white fur allele and the red cow gave her red cow allele, if they had a baby, it would be called a roan cow. And if you could see, there's both red and white. They're, you know, not a mix or a blend, but they have both showing. And then a lot of genes have multiple alleles in population, even though individuals carry only 2 alleles. So for rabbit fur color, you can have dark gray. So these are the possible genes that they could give, but you only have 2 alleles. So if, you know, the mom and dad give a big C, it's going to be dark gray. If they give a big C, little c, it's dark gray. Chinchilla is little c, and then they have CH. So those are recessive. Light gray, these are the, you know, basic alleles that could be given. Point restriction is when they have black ear and black nose. And then albino is when you have both little c, that's recessive, and they don't have any pigment given. So here again, this would be example of incomplete dominance. This would be an example of codominance where both red and white. So say you had a red rose and a white rose. They had offspring, their offspring would be like, you know, pink. Or if you had a red rose and a white rose, if it showed codominance, it would show both colors. And then these are multiple alleles, different colors of roses. Blood type is also a way to show codominance and dominant recessive. So ABO blood types is one of the many different ways to classify blood. People can have the RH factor. It's dominant if it's a plus. If it's recessive, it has a 0. So, and blood represents codominance with AB blood. Both types show dominant recessive A with O blood. I don't know what A and B that's supposed to say. So dominant would be A and B, O blood would be recessive. So O blood, O negative, does not have any antigens on its blood cell. If you have A negative blood, you have the A antigen, but you do not have this RH factor. That's why it's negative. O positive means you don't have any A or B antigen, but you have the RH factor. A positive, you have A antigen and the RH factor. RH stands for rhesus monkey. They found this antigen in rhesus monkeys, so that's why, that's where the O negative and O plus come from. B negative blood just have the B antigen. B plus blood, they have the B antigen and the RH factor. And AB negative, they have the A antigen, the B antigen, but they don't have the RH factor. AB plus, they have A antigen, B antigen, and the RH factor. Do you guys know what the universal recipient and universal donor would be? Which blood could, which genotype could receive any type of blood, and which genotype could give to any type of blood? Do you guys know? Because if you get the wrong antigen in your blood, like say if you had A blood and you mixed B antigen in there, it would start attacking. Your body would not recognize it. It would attack and it would like clump up and you'd have a really bad reaction. So O would be the universal donor. They can give to any type of blood because they don't have any of those antigens on there. So they are the universal donor. AB positive is the universal recipient. They can give to, or they can get blood from anybody because they have all the antigens, so their body would recognize any of these. So if you put A blood and O blood together. If you gave an O person A blood, they would really not do well because the body wouldn't recognize that A antigen. All right, I think this is the last slide. It might be one more, but sex-linked traits are determined by the X and the Y chromosome, those sex chromosomes. So non-sex chromosomes are called autosomes. They're body cells. Recessive X-linked traits are observed more in females, or males than in females, sorry. So hemophilia is a sex-linked trait, and it's basically your blood doesn't clot correctly. It's like it's a mutation on one of the blood, or one of the chromosomes on the blood. One of the genes is mutated, and it doesn't have a clotting factor, and that's carried on your X chromosome. So the mother, she does not have hemophilia. If she married a guy with hemophilia, the offspring would have, both girls, they would have a 50%. So if they had a girl, their girls would always be carriers of that disease. They would not have hemophilia, but they would carry it and have a possibility to pass it on. The Y gene, both boys would not have hemophilia. Here's another example. Say you had an unaffected father. He did not carry that hemophilia gene. He is the normal gene. And then my thing's kind of covering it up, moving it. The mother is a carrier. So say one of these girls married a normal guy. So she's a carrier. She has the normal gene, but she carries the hemophilia. If she had a boy, both of her, one of her sons would be unaffected if he got this chromosome here. If they had a girl, she would be unaffected because she inherited both this one and this one from the mom. If you had a carrier daughter, the guy would give his good X chromosome and the girl would give her hemophilia chromosome. And if the mom gave the hemophilia gene and the dad gave his Y, this boy would have hemophilia. That's why more guys show that sex-linked traits. Girls have to get both. You know, if the only way a girl could get hemophilia is if her dad had hemophilia and her mother was a carrier, and then they would have hemophilia. Let's see. I think that's it. Okay, so we are done with the slideshow. Again, I have, if you took notes on this, if you want to send a video or a picture of it to me, or just kind of hold it for yourself, you might need it for later. I also have that print off copy that they're the kind of guided notes if you want it. Those are for you to study since we don't have a book. I'll probably post tomorrow video, and we'll start doing practice Punnett square stuff. And I'm gonna try to do it on this. I'm not sure how, but we'll figure it out. Like I said, learning curve. But hope you guys are doing well, and I miss you. And I have to figure out how to turn this off. I'm leaving, I'm ending it, so